What's up everyone, Howie here at Law Records. Today we're breaking down BAILE93 by Hellbound. As always, you can head over to my Patreon to pick up this project file. I really appreciate all the support, everyone who's been over there. It really helps me to continue doing these videos. I'm going to be aiming for one remake or one in the style of video every single week. And I'm also going to do additional technical videos breaking down some of the elements in these tracks in a bit more detail and maybe some tracks from scratch as well. So if that interests you, make sure you're subscribed and let's start breaking this down. So the first thing we've got is a top kick and then a regular kick. And together. The top kick is just a cut of the same kick from my Law Kick foundations. I've just taken the attack just to accentuate it a little bit more. I felt like this track needed a very snappy kick, so I just added a little bit more transient on top. But that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can pick up those kicks, by the way, on my Patreon and on my website. So next up is the rumble, and this is fairly complicated, to be honest. These rumbles are massive in these tracks. They need that depth, they need the layers to make them sound really big. So the first rumble we've got is a low rumble. And that is just a kick stretched with a 16th delay on it, an amp and an auto filter, cutting it very low at 100 hertz. So we're just getting that sub. So we're going to get the rest from these rumbles. So this is the mid rumble. And what we're doing here is basically playing a drum kit, one of Ableton's stock drum kits, having a kick on every single beat and having hats and different types of shakers on the other parts of the beat and a snare at the end. And basically what this is doing is creating like a bit of a wall of sound, but it's like a wall of sound with a groove. And when you distort this, all I've done is put an auto filter to increase that resonance and then overdrive it. It sounds like this. You can see it's kind of busy. The kicks and the drums are triggering very often. So that's kind of creating that mid-range wall of sound. It's still got quite a lot of low end in it though. And then with this one, you can kind of hear how that's starting to create that thick rumble. So then we've got this additional top rumble. This is the same thing. It's a drum kit with a lot of different hits happening all across the kit. It hasn't got the kick playing though. I removed that because I just wanted the top and mid range to be really crunchy and layer with our rumble. And this is just adding like a lot of texture, a lot of depth to the sound. So we've got this crystal clear kit with some overdrive, auto filter cutting the highs and auto filter cutting the lows. And then I kind of just took the edge off because it was really harsh. Yeah, so that just changes the sound a little bit. And we're layering that with our mid rumble and our low rumble, and I'll play all of those together. Without the top layer. Yeah, so it really needs that top layer just to add that texture. Let's just quickly play the kick and the rumbles together. That's quite a big part of the sound. That's already getting you halfway there to getting that Hellbound, very deep, intense rumble. And then we've got an open hat, which is just a very simple open hat. Nothing special there, just a 909, quite short though. The Schranz loops, so I'm going to do a whole video on these Schranz loops. I'm going to break down how to go about making them, how to think about it. But essentially, you kind of want a distorted mid-range layer. You want mid-range percussion and mid-range hats. You don't want too much kind of high harshness, but you want a lot of mid-range, and we're going to get that crunch, that depth, and that kind of in-your-face distorted sound that these tracks have mainly from these Schranz loops. Let's play them all together. So they're kind of just sounding a bit like distorted hi-hats, but the first layer is actually a rim shot. Reverb, amp, EQ, saturator, with the wave shaper on. That's very important. Without the wave shaper, and with the wave shaper. That's just that Schranz crunch sound, so make sure you're using the wave shaper in saturator. It's really good. Okay, and a bit of side chain to finish it off. I'm sidechaining everything from this sidechain tick. Schranz loop 2. Okay, so that's a little bit more clean. That's a little bit more like a normal hat loop, but you can still hear that slight crunch that's in the loop. It's got definitely more than one thing going on. And then finally, this last Schranz loop. So you can tell that's quite different from the other one. It's got quite a lot of mid-range. So when they're together, so that's adding that mid-range in. That's the Schranz loops, fairly simple. Hellbound in this track has like African percussion and bongos, so I did this. It's pretty clean, doesn't really need that much, but it's sort of quite a wide bongo. I panned it 7 to the right just to separate it from everything. And then you've got this ride loops. I saw a breakdown he did where he uses multiple ride cymbals, so I did that here. First one's more like a side chained and more mid-range. And the second one is a bit higher. And together, yeah, that kind of fills up the spectrum again. Schranz is often about filling up that spectrum as much as possible, so you have to do it in every stage. I've got this percussion on the first beat of every bar. It's really simple. It's just a percussion I liked and some side chain. So next is this tonal percussion. It's basically got raw, redux. This adds quite a lot of crunch to the sound. Yeah, I really bit crushed the hell out of that. High passed and bringing out quite a lot of the mid-range. Basically just following the reference and just trying to get the sort of sound that he had. This percussion isn't perfect, but it's the closest I could find to what he was doing. Next to this tom fill, just for the intro. Nothing special there, just a low tom. And finally, we've got this lead, which is the only lead in the whole track. It's actually quite a simple lead, but it's got 3 layers, so I suppose it's not that simple. We've got this wide saw, which is most of the sound. It's like the main character of the sound. We've got this middle saw. It's basically just to give the center image some power, but it's just sort of sitting in the middle. It's not that obvious. And then we've got some white noise. Let's have a look at these in a little bit more detail. So it's essentially just 2 saw waves, different saw waves to give a different character. One's to tune -25, one's to tune 23. Just got a simple filter on, triggering the envelope, 12 dB, and basically it's just triggered by this envelope. But the attack isn't 0, there is actually a bit of attack, so it kind of comes in a little bit slower than coming in straight away like a pluck, and it just gives it that kind of warm analog sound. The amp envelope looks like this, with the sustain down a little bit and just taking some of the edge off the sustain. And it's across the same across this one, the envelopes, everything's the same. But in this layer, I decided to add a little bit of a pitch bend in the matrix, and it's using envelope 3, 79 milliseconds, to modulate this pitch, and it's only doing 0.8, and it's just giving it that slight laser down sound. It's really subtle, but I think it helps to make it a bit more interesting. On the detuned layer, I'm also doing unison, and I'm doing 7 voices, 77 amount on the shimmer mode. The shimmer mode sounded the best by a mile. It sounded very accurate to the original, so I kept that in there. Now let's have a look at the processing. So we've got an amp in rock mode, and it's basically adding a lot of brightness to the sound. Raw, which is going to give it a lot of power. It's in 2 stages: serial mode, soft clipping, and bit crushing. I love raw for this sort of thing. It's really good for adding some energy, adding some brightness, basically just putting in a load of frequencies to the sound and making it fuller. It's going to make your tracks a lot louder using stuff like that as well. You could use Saturn if you have that, but I think raw is really good. I've monoed the sound a little bit. I've reduced the width because you don't want your leads too wide because they basically just get lost. You want kind of focused and powerful down the middle as much as you can while still having some width. EQ, just to boost the mids at 3 kilohertz. That's basically just adding some almost harshness to the sound. Now, a lot of people get this wrong in their leads, where they will just throw a reverb or an echo on top of the lead and just call it a day, maybe put it to 20% dry wet. But I recommend actually using an audio effects rack and kind of blending some reverb into the lead and actually EQing the reverb afterwards, just getting rid of some lows and highs because they're just going to clash with the rest of the track, and you just want that mid-range. The reverb's fairly heavy. I've got a digital rich chamber, 2.4 seconds. That's almost my go-to for pretty much every track, 2.4 seconds, and I kind of move it up and down a bit. Got another EQ boosting the mid-range, just trying to bring out that mid-range and make it sit in the center. And here I've actually used digital clip to clip the lead. I normally always do some sort of clipping or limiting at the end just to take the edge off a bit, because again, if you're going to have your track really loud, like -4 LUFS, -5 LUFS, you know, these guys' tracks are hitting super hard. You want to make sure you're controlling your dynamics where you can, and I think leads particularly can get very spiky. So I just did a bit of digital clipping on this lead to make it sit better. Finally, I'll run you through the master. We've just got a standard EQ, boosting a bit of the lows, boosting a bit at 200 because it was missing a bit of punch, and then doing some highs. And once again, I use this glue compressor to kind of crunch up the sound. Yeah, it's just adding a little bit more crunch to the sound. You could probably push that a bit harder. And then I've got the saturator on digital clip mode, just adding 1.9 drive, basically just finishing it off, bringing it up to 0 dB. I probably would use K-clip normally, but this works pretty well. I use K-clip or standard clip because you can kind of see a little bit clearer what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with the sound of this though. You can dial it in the same way. You can use saturator to clip the end of your tracks. As always, this is available on my Patreon. I really appreciate the support. It could help you make a great track. You can take elements out of it, you can make it your own, add your own leads, you can change the melodies, you can basically mix this up, use elements of this in your workflow to basically create tracks faster. So that's the whole point. That's why I make these. Thanks for watching, keep producing, and I'll see you in the next one.